Story continued from Episode 1, Ceratosarus. Just keep running. Just keep running, was all her brain kept repeating as she blitzed through the ancient forest. The Dryosaurus had only seconds before been eating with her flock, when they had suddenly been attacked and forced to scatter in all directions. They would inevitably find each other later, but for now she had to save herself. She kept running, weaving in between trees and jumping over logs and rocks. She could sense that the attacker had chosen to follow her. She risked a glance behind herself and instantly saw her pursuer, a Ceratosaurus, the same large female with the facial scar that had been tormenting her flock for years. At this point, the Dryosaurus would have preferred to be chased by an Allosaurus. In these forests, the large carnivores found it difficult to move amongst the trees, but the Ceratosaurus was just at home in the dense forest as she would be on an open field, and was closing the distance between them. The Dryosaurus saw that she was coming up close to the forest edge. Out there was no cover, but maybe there was something better. The Ceratosaurus was very close now. Waiting for the right moment, the Dryosaurus jinxed to the left and ducked under a fallen tree, the predator's jaws clamping down just behind her. A small herbivore could fit under the deadwood, but the hunter could not, and so had to go around, giving the Dryosaurus the precious seconds she needed. She soon broke away from the forest, and was fortunate enough to find exactly what she needed. After her prey had slipped away under the fallen tree, the Ceratosaurus moved around and continued the pursuit. She almost lost sight of the smaller dinosaur as she ran out of the forest, and then suddenly stopped under a row of odd trees. Perhaps she was already exhausted. The hunter didn't care and charged. As she broke the tree line, her prey was almost within reach, when she realized the trees she stood behind weren't trees at all. They were legs. Grinding to a halt, the predator nearly slammed headfirst into the massive creature that the Dryosaurus was sheltering under. Taking a step back, the confused predator saw that the Dryosaurus had fled behind a herd of Camarasaurus. These sauropods may not have been as large as their cousins Diplodocus or Brachiosaurus, but they still stood 7 meters tall and weighed 20 times more than the predator, who suddenly found herself dwarfed by the massive tree browsers. Looking down for her intended target, the hunter saw that the Dryosaurus was positioned between 2 of the giants. Now surrounded by 8 massive legs, the predator had no hope of getting to her. The herd of Camarasaurus now began to address the predator. 2 large males stomped towards her, low rumbles reverberating from their chests. The Ceratosaurus backed away, hissing angrily. Even in a pack, she would have little hope of taking down a single Camarasaurus. Alone and against a herd, she would be lucky to escape with taking a small chunk out of one of them. Defeated, the predator turned and moved away. This hunt may have been unsuccessful, but her territory was full of prey, most being the size she could handle. The Dryosaurus watched as the horned hunter left. She would stay with the herd for a while, till she was confident enough that the threat was gone. The giants that surrounded her didn't even know she was there. They simply returned to the task of eating as much leaves as they could find. Though the Dryosaurus now had to avoid the enormous legs of the sauropods, she much preferred that than the jaws of the Ceratosaurus. Something was bothering her, however. Over the past few weeks, that particular Ceratosaurus had been acting odd. Usually, her species preferred to hunt at night, and were often quiet and stuck to the thick forests. This was because they often lived in fear of the larger Allosaurus, which ruled as the top predators and saw the Ceratosaurus as competition. This one, however, was bold, hunting any part of the day, appearing in the forests and on the open plains in equal measure. In fact, some other Ceratosaurus had also appeared in the area as well. Where the Dryosaurus felt moderately safe during the day, they now faced ambush constantly, and that large female with the scar seemed to be a sort of alpha. It was not long before all this started that the Dryosaurus had heard the loud roar of a wounded Allosaurus, the one that ruled this area. Not long after that was when everything had changed. Had the Allosaurus died? Did the Ceratosaurus kill it herself? With no competition, was this why the female was so emboldened? So many questions. Yet what was apparent to the little dinosaur was that the balance in this area had changed rapidly. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today we will be covering the oak tree lizard, Dryosaurus. Dryosaurus was an ornithopod dinosaur from the late Jurassic period, between 156 to 146 million years ago, in North America. Though it is one of the most commonly found herbivores in the Morrison Formation, no full-grown adult specimens have been found. But the fossils range from embryos to subadults, so it is a well-studied species. With this in mind, it is estimated to have grown between 2.4 meters long to 4.5 meters long, 1 to 1.5 meters in height, and weighing between 70 to 90 kilograms. Being a herbivore, Dryosaurus had a hard beak for eating low-lying vegetation and many teeth for grinding it down. It is also believed to have had large cheek pouches to store more plant matter while it chewed. It had long, slender, yet strong legs and a stiff tail, so it would have been a good runner. Running would have been its primary defense from predators, other than seeking shelter with larger herbivores. It is also one of the first dinosaurs to have had its growth studied. At a young age, its eyes were massive and its muzzle short, but as it grew, its eyes fit better into its skull and its muzzle lengthened. It is also likely that it raised its young from the moment they hatched. The Morrison Formation is a very well-researched site, and many species have been unearthed there. Some dinosaurs that would have lived alongside Dryosaurus include Camarasaurus, Diplodocus, Brachiosaurus, Camptosaurus, Stegosaurus, Ceratosarus, Ornitholestes, and Allosaurus. Dryosaurus was fairly low on the food chain, and likely lived constantly on the edge, relying on sentries to keep a lookout while the rest of the flock fed or slept. With excellent vision and a fast running speed, it was likely not as easy a catch as many take it for. After all, if its fossil records are anything to go by, they were quite common. So, Dryosaurus, a rather simple dinosaur with a long history. We often overlook some of the smaller dinosaur species, forgetting that they played an important role in the ecosystem, and probably lived very fast and frantic lives. But what do you think of Dryosaurus? Do you appreciate her as much as I do, or forget her amongst the giants of the Jurassic? What lesser-known dinosaur would you like me to cover in a future episode? Until then, stay tuned for future tales from this particular Jurassic forest.